All right, so this might be season one of let's call it, let's call it psychological frameworks. Let's go with that because I didn't decide on the names yet. Anyways, I was skimming through my library just now and I came across a book that I've read quite a while ago. It's called Nudge. And Nudge is all about how does our environment shape the decisions we make? Because the key claim both authors make, by the way, they did win the Nobel Prize for that book, is that you are not free to make your choices. There are always people who architect your choices, and because of that, you're not really independent in thought and in forming a thought that strengthens a case for making a decision. You're not doing that. Now, the best example before, we go in well, and I'll try to explain the factors that come into this is the saying where it kind of goes like, if you have a group of five and five or like four of them are millionaires or four of them are ambitious, you'll be the fifth. And that is exactly the case that Richard Thaler and Cass Sunstein, both authors, make in the book. And this example is essentially the guiding example I'll be using to make the point clear on how they explain it. Even though the book is short and pretty easy to comprehend, I did make some notes so that we don't go over the time. So the key idea that they present, again, is that we don't make our own choices. In this world, we are ruled by emotions, by social norms, and by defaults, like thinking pattern that are established just because of how our brain is built. And because every brain has kind of like a different structure, we all tend to think like in a bit of a weird way. So we have differences from each other in terms of how we think, but at the end, we all have systems that help us think. And this is essentially the physical default that we have. And if you want to maybe explore more about how we make decisions, there is a better book than Nudge, also Nobel Prize winner. It's called Thinking Slow, no, Thinking Fast and Thinking Slow by Daniel Kahneman. And he essentially explores that we have two systems in which system one is the faster one that makes very inaccurate decisions, essentially the system that falls for Nudge, while system two, in his opinion, and based on his data, allows us to think critically and reflect before we make decisions, something that would withstand Nudge, for instance. But that's just a side note. Anyway, the thing is, now we know that we have constraints in making decisions, and there are people that know that, and those people are choice architects. Now you might know them under the name of marketing, under the name of kind of people who are specialized in neuromarketing, because those are the people that are exploiting our biological behaviors. And choice architects can, by design, for instance, shape how you make decisions based on your environment. So in the book, Thaler and Kestein talk about the environment or like the design of a cafeteria. And what they noticed is that if you want to encourage healthy snacks, healthy drinks like water, you need to place these items near checkout or very near to where people get their food. So instead of kind of like having water, for instance, behind soft drinks in a machine or on a table, for instance, you are doing a better job at providing healthier snacks when you just reverse the order. And that is so simple and it works well. Like they actually tried it in schools and they were, surprised that it actually works. So that's, for instance, one thing. But that is also how, for instance, at supermarkets, you kind of notice very random items near checkout and specifically like drinks and snacks because people who kind of designed supermarkets, they knew that sometimes people they crave a certain snack, or they crave sugar when they see it. And because the sizes are so small, we don't really think about I wouldn't say the consequences because again, if it's just a snack bar, it's not that bad. But they know that they can increase profits just by um, having these snacks near you when you check out because you're waiting in line, you don't have a lot to do, right? So you're just looking at the snacks and you're like, should I buy? Should I not buy? Do I need it? Do I not need it? So, and some people, they buy it. So goal achieved. Another example is maybe app interfaces. So if you think about apps like Duolingo, Revolut, all these apps that are very easy to use and all these apps that have one clear goal, which you as a user can explain just by using the app, are also built by choice makers or architects. The reason that you tend to use these apps a lot, and we want to include Instagram and TikTok as well, is because they either have a really nice visual aspect. So if you know Duolingo, you know that it's very simple, it looks childlike, it looks harmless. You spend a lot of time on it. In the best case, that's actually good because you're learning a language. For Revolut is also nice, you're checking your finances. So Revolut is a finance app, by the way. It's very easy to use. It has amazing animations, and that's why a lot of people stick to it. And then you come to the holy grail of essentially app design, which is TikTok, Instagram, where you're just scrolling and repeating essentially the feelings you would get if you're playing on a casino, like near a casino. It's the same thing. You're just using so much dopamine and scrolling because you're assuming something new comes after each scroll. And that is what choice architects are well aware of. And then you have social norms. So that goes back to our initial example where, if you have a group of friends and they all share a trait, no matter positively or how bad it is, you will be shaped by that trait, right? And that's why you need, for instance, a circle of people who really inspire you because you will take that trait from them. It's just how we function because we are social animals and we went in groups thousands of years ago. So if we were not able to adapt to one another, we would have been dead. So that's how I explain myself that you're adhering to social norms. Then what they call, that's a very interesting third key idea that they have, is that choice architects, they're not only in the corporate world, they also exist on a governmental level. And so what these people try to do is they try to steer you in the right direction because they know how your brain works. Think about health insurance, for instance. If you live in a country where you can upgrade for health insurance or, there is no mandatory health insurance in that case, there are certain environments that might shape you to sign up for health insurance. How could you do that, right? So obviously extreme cases kind of having people who do not have health insurance maybe near a hospital and let them see what diseases there are actually. Because a lot of people tend to think, oh, I'm not going to be sick. Yes, you might be and see the consequence of that. If people see that, they might, develop a reaction and be like, oh, it's not too bad to buy health insurance. Apart from that, you could bombard them with ads. Like advertisements are a form of neuromarketing and it works just as well. So people will sign up eventually if you have bombarded them enough. So those were essentially the key ideas. So we are not free to choose. There are choice architects, both corporate and governmental level. And we are steered not only by choice architects, but also by emotions, our brain evolution, and social norms. Now, you don't need to remember everything out of it, but what you might want to remember is that your environment shapes you. And if you want to be better at life, or if you want to improve yourself, it's always a pretty safe bet to say, I'm going to switch places. And in most cases, if you start living in a nicer city, if you start living maybe in a new country, you will start adapting. And in most cases, if you start adapting with new challenges, that's just a great way of seeing how, your choices have been, or like the choices that you previously made, they have been a bit screwed up because assume you change locations and near you in your previous location, you had a supermarket near you or a restaurant. Now you don't have that in your new location, which is great because that means that either you need to cook or walk along the supermarkets, which is healthy for you. It could also mean that you need to commute a lot, which is a bad case, but you get my point. So as soon as you start to change, you will notice what habits you had. And you might wake up from them, you might realize them, but you will fall into the same nudge mechanisms, but in a better environment. And I think overall, if you want to get better for this year, if that's on your list in any way, then you need to think about changing locations. Thank you for your attention for my unofficial TED Talk. I hope I didn't talk too long.